I think we can safely get started now. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Joyce Dixon-Lawson. I'm a historian and genealogist. And my favorite hobby, lifetime project is tracing my ancestors. It's a lifetime project, y'all. So if you don't find them right off, just think about it. It's a lifetime project. Because you constantly get new ancestors, new family members coming in. And if you think it's hard now, just wait 20 years when they're trying to do the same thing. So welcome to the William Winter Building. It's named after the former governor, William Winter. And we're located here at 200 North Street. Right now we're in the orientation room. Okay, let's see if this thing works like it's supposed to. Technology is not my favorite thing, apparently. So today is September the 9th, 2023, and we're in Jackson, Hinds County, Mississippi. I would like to put the county, because when you're doing genealogy, knowing what county you are in, it's very important. Genealogy is personal. I always start off with saying genealogy is personal because you're going to come into some roadblocks and you're going to find out why I say genealogy is personal. You're going to have some family members who are not going to want to answer questions because they're saying, that's my business. How many times have you heard that? That's my business. Yeah, don't talk about that. You're trespassing in my business. That's why I said genealogy is personal. When you run into one of these roadblocks, just don't worry about it. Go ask another person. Because believe me, if one family member knows, another one knows. Just don't get in a confrontation with them. Then after a while, once they see that you are really doing something that's great for the whole family, they'll start kicking in. Like, oh yeah, I remember that right there. Let me tell you about this right here. Then you got all this information that you didn't think about. Because now it's not personal anymore. It's like, well, she's talking about it. It's okay for me to talk about it. Family members, they're so funny. Believe me, being one of 11 children, I know all about it. Can you all see this map? Okay. It's always important to know where the ancestors come from. So in this historical map here, it shows you that the vast majority of enslaved people in Mississippi came from Maryland and Virginia. So you look at this map here. Get it down. You want to cut the lights down some? Can we turn the lights down just a little bit? On the screen. Yeah, we have to do it from the wall over here. We can't do it from the screen though. Okay, all right. And at some point, this presentation will be on our MDH, our YouTube channel. So you can go back and look at it and ask more questions. You have my email address, so you can always email me and I will try to my best to answer it. If I can't answer it, I will send you to someone who can answer it. I want to leave you out there lingering, okay? I don't like lingering. Which state did your ancestors live in? Not everyone lived in a slaveholding state. So these are the states. We always talk about the Emancipation Proclamation. We say, wait, the Emancipation Proclamation freed all the enslaved people, right? No, it didn't. It only freed those, technically, that were in the states that seceded from the Union. If your state did not secede from the Union, the Emancipation Proclamation did not affect them. Okay? So you have to know which state your ancestors were actually from before you start your research. And I would say everyone has a Mississippi ancestor. Just as important to know what state your ancestors came from, it's important to know what county and when your ancestors lived in, and when your county was formed. So if you have relatives that said, my relatives were from Humphreys County, And why I can't find them on the 1880 census? Why? Humphreys County wasn't counted in. You should be looking in the parent county. You should be looking in Holmes and Yazoo and those counties. Because Humphreys County was formed after 1900. So you're not going to find them prior to that date. You look for records and like, there are no records for Humphreys County because the county was not formed. So you have your big counties, your parent counties, then you have some that were formed after 1900. You also have a large amount of counties that were formed after the Civil War. There were not northeastern counties like Prentice and Alcorn, those were formed around 1870. Benton, 1870. All from that Tishomingo County area up there. And Monroe County, which is the oldest county on the northeast side, with Adams County being the oldest county of all. In our previous workshops, we talked about county records, we talked about census records, federal census records, but today we're going to talk about state records. This is like a series of workshops. So today we're going to talk about those records that primarily are found in the state. And when I say state, I'm talking about Mississippi, because every state record is going to be different, okay? So you need to contact those archives and ask them when their records start or go to their website.
What were the other ones you mentioned that we're not covering today?
County records and federal census records. So today we're going to talk about state census records, eligible children's school records, birth and death records, hospital records, mental and others, and penitentiary records. So sometimes we kind of shy away from records that say, oh, penitentiary records or mental records, mental hospital records. But why? A mental hospital record just means that someone had a medical issue and they went to the hospital. A penitentiary record, someone did something that they may have been, they may have done it, they may not have. You have to look at the time period when these things happen. So it doesn't matter where you find them. The thing is to find them, put them on the tree, put them on a branch, and keep it moving. I don't care where I find mine at, because that does not reflect me, right? That's them. I'm Joyce. So all I want to do is find this ancestor. I don't care where his roots are. I'm going to put him on that tree, and I'm going to go to the next person. So it doesn't matter where you find them. The point is to find them. I would like to stop here and talk about these family pictures, because family pictures, not only do they give you an idea of how they lived, it also brings a human aspect to the story. So in this picture here, on the left, the lady in the hat, that's my children's great-grandmother, Docia Dampier, from Lawrence County, Mississippi. The next one over is their great-grandmother, Docia Walker, Docia Dampier Walker. And then on the bottom is their grandmother now, Mayberry Dixon. When I look at the pictures, you can see how genes talk to you. You are like, why do they look like that? Those genes talk. Now, they may skip some generations, and you wonder, why in the world this girl has blue eyes? Look at those genes. Go back and look at the family. I've had some nieces that were born with blue eyes, and I'm like, what? Then I talked to my mother. She said, we know Grandmama Lida had blue eyes. I was like, nobody ever told me that. When I was born, Grandmama Lida had already passed on. I know you can't see this very well, but the most important thing I want you to do is get the series number, series 100. That is, when you go into the archives, you want to type in series 100, and it's going to give you the state census returns. It's going to be different for every county, because every county is formed at a different date. You don't know what you're going to find until you actually open up that record and look, okay? Every year, the format is different, and the records are going to be different. If you don't see a county there, that county we may not have any for that county.
What does that mean when you have historical notes regarding
I'm sorry, say it again.
Historical note regarding survey of the city census. What is that?
Sometimes the record wasn't returned. And you may get something, it's only going to be totals. That's the 1870, that's the federal census. We're talking about state census records today. Yes, ma'am. But now, it didn't start in 1870. African Americans were first listed on the census in full in 1870. So prior to 1870, if you were African American, you had to be a free person of color to be on that federal census. So we're talking about the state census today, and you will, in some cases, in 1866, you will see some African American listed there. But so this example of 1881, and I do 1880 because 1880 federal census and you have 1880 federal census and you have 1880 state census. So when you see one, don't be confused that, well, I'm just going to look at this one and not look at the other one, because the questions are different and they're also done at a different time period. So you're going to find people at different locations. So just because you see a duplicate record, don't skip one and go to the other, okay? Every record that I see, it's like every pebble I see, I'm going to turn it over. Because you don't know what you're going to find. So this is 1880, Calhoun County. This is the county that I was born in many years ago. in a car. No, sorry, in a truck. I tell people that explains my personality today. They let me fall on my head in that truck. So this is the schoolhouse. My mother went to school in VARDAMAN, Mississippi. That's where I was born. You know, I just told you about the instance I was born. So this is Calhoun County. This is VARDAMAN, Mississippi, the sweet potato capital of the world. If y'all need sweet potatoes, that's the place to go. Still is the main crop. I'll be up there soon to give me another box of sweet potatoes. So we're going to talk about eligible children records. Eligible children records, it's kind of like a census of school-age children. You did not have to go to school to be on the eligible children's school record. It just meant that you're eligible to go to school, right? So a lot of times, you'll find people on the eligible children's school record that did not go to school. I found my father on the eligible children's school record, but he stopped at school in the 2nd grade. But for years, he's on the eligible children's school record because he's of age to go to school. Now, in 1961, I see my father, my mother, and my 1-year-old sister on the eligible children's school record. Well, apparently, someone wasn't quite sure of what they were supposed to record. So they recorded everyone they saw. So that wasn't the assignment, but historically speaking, as a genealogist, I love they made that mistake. Because now I have some relatives that I would not have a record of had they not made that mistake. So every county is going to be different on the number of years they have for eligible children. If you go to our website in the Digital Records Archives, you will see eligible children. But don't just stop there if you don't see what you're looking for. Because there are some eligible children's school records that are on microfilm in the county records. So you can't talk about state records, not talk about county records, because they combine each other. So the records on microfilm, they were not scanned and put as a digital record. So they were already in another format. The ones that are scanned, they had to go ahead and scan those because over the years, people are using that paper and it comes to breaking into pieces. To preserve the documents, they had them all scanned and put on our website. Now our website is free. You can go to it, our website anytime you get ready. If you want other records, you can come to the archives and just go to these reference services and they will tell you what we have. Or you can go to it yourself, just go to county records, look under your county, go down to E for eligible children, click on that, and it'll tell you if there's anything there, okay? Always more than one way to look up something. The most questions I get are from people who want to know, I want a death record, I want a birth record of my relative. I went to the Department of Health, and my grandmother died in 1910. My grandmother died in 1912, but there's no record of her. So the state did not start keeping birth or death records in November 1912. Right? So what am I supposed to do before that? You're going to look in your cemetery records, your funeral home records, your manuscript records, newspapers, but none of those things are state records. So officially, the state started keeping records, birth and death records, November 1912. The Department of Archives and History has death records from 1912 to 1943. They're on market for you in the media room here. Easy to access. You can make your copy. Someone just contacted me 2 weeks ago. She had the death record numbers, and she said she contacted the State Board of Health, and they said they didn't have those death records. I'm like, wait a minute, this is the number right here. So I came up yesterday, and I pulled them out. That wasn't before them. I pulled them up, and they were there. So I don't know why the State Board of Health told they didn't have them. Because what we have is a duplicate copy of what they got. They have the originals, and we have the duplicate copy. So I just scanned them and sent them to her to make life a little easier for her.
You mentioned cemetery records.
Yes, ma'am.
What about a lot of these cemeteries in these little towns? Do they have names?
A lot of them do have names. You have a lot of abandoned cemeteries as well. So you were trying to go to the church that's associated with that cemetery and see if those church records. Now, unfortunately, a lot of cemetery records and church records are lost over the years because the secretary said those are her records. And so when she was replaced or something happened in the church, she took those records with her because they are her records. They don't belong to the church. Unfortunately, that's not the way I think it works, but that's what happens. Midwives have existed way before the state began giving them formal training. So you can find midwife records in the Department of Health records as well as private manuscripts. And many times, a lot of times the records were lost because midwives would go from place to place and they didn't have a proper place to store these records. Or the county courthouse or where they were turned into was too far away for them. And sometimes they kept the records, but family members, when mom and dad died, all these records that they kept. Why mom and dad got all these old papers? So what happened to them? They threw them away.
You said you can go to the department. My grandmother was a midwife, and Jackson State was doing a study on granny midwife, and I was looking for her records, but so I could have gone to the Department of Health.
Department of Health, some of the records are there, but I think the ones that are there are probably already here at the Department of Archives and History. So you go into the archives and say, I want to look for midwife records. Okay. And there are not many of them, but you don't know what you're going to find until you actually look. Okay. I said that over and over again because if you don't keep looking, you're not going to find these records.
So are these good for looking for relatives who didn't have birth certificates?
Yeah, probably. If you don't find them, probably the best thing to look for is eligible children's school records or early census records. Obituaries are not state records. Someone just contacted me and said, I went to the archives and I was looking for the obituaries and they wouldn't let me see them. That's why they're not state records. Obituaries are family records and they're hit and miss. It all depends on who gave the information, who filled out the obituary, right? So I know when my aunt passed away, and back in 2016, her granddaughter did the obituary. She did not list not one sister or brother of her sister. She listed all the children, the grandchildren, the nieces and nephews. But my grandmother had 16 children. Not one of those children were on that obituary. So it's not a state record, it's a family record, okay? And sometimes if you don't find, you can go to, sometimes they'll keep copies at the funeral home. I've gotten some that way. But most of the time, because they accumulate, paper accumulates so much, they throw them away.
Well, now they're online, so do they keep them?
I don't know how long they keep that database or how long the shelf life is for the records online. Because it is totally up to them how long they keep those records, because that is their personal record. Funeral homes are regulated by the state. However, the records are private. Now, I called the funeral home just to verify, because I knew this, but then I need to verify. So I called 2 funeral homes this week, and I said, are your records private or are they public? Or you are regulated by the state? So the answer to both places was yes. We're regulated by the state, but our records are private. Now, I know when the cemetery, funeral home in Clay County, they had a changeover. Someone bought the funeral home. But what happened was, when they bought the cemetery, bought the funeral home, the new owner said, look at all this paper. What happened to them? They threw them away. And I was calling trying to get them for the archives, and she said, oh, ma'am, we're sorry, we burned those last week. I was just a week short. I just wanted to cry because that's one of my home counties. But cemeteries can be private and public. Please know before you go walking into a cemetery. It can be on private land, it can be on public land. Then there are family cemeteries. Don't just go walking out there and coming on the road and you see a cemetery and hop out. Let me go and run out in the cemetery. You need to know before you start going off in these cemeteries, okay? And also wear your boots, because you know there are snakes in the cemetery. Believe me, I know all about that. So I still cannot locate my ancestors. What records I'm overlooking? Okay, let's look at the prison records and hospital records. This is a record from the state penitentiary at Parchman, as opposed to Parchman Penitentiary. There's no Parchman Penitentiary. There's the Mississippi State Penitentiary at Parchman, just like it's the State Mental Hospital at Whitfield. It took me years to get that straightened out. So you see this record. It says Albert Coleman from Sunflower County, March. What's that, 1920? Maybe I should put my glasses on, y'all. I've got a couple of years on me now, so I might need to start using them. So we got Albert Coleman, Sunflower County, Bill Ellis, Neshoba County, Ivory Marshall, Hines County. So some of these records are available to the public, and some are not. And you won't know what the restrictions are until you go into the search room and say, I want to look at these records. And once you get to that record, it's going to tell you whether or not it's available for you to look at. And if it's not available for you to look at, there's going to be a note there telling you how to get availability. Okay? Because sometimes you may have to go to the court system to get it. But I always know there's a way to do it. Which one? Let me go back. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going too far. Okay. Which record are you talking about?
The birth
Okay, so some of them say pardoned, others says revoked. And
so it's time they were in prison.
that's for that date, yes ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Now when you look at the index to the penitentiary records, most of the time it would say when they were released or did they die in prison, something like that. Same thing when you go to a mental hospital record. It may give you that information on the index. One of the hospitals in Meridian is the Maddie Hersey Hospital. And you're going to find those records in the catalog. You just go in and just type in Maddie Hersey. If you're in that area around Meridian. And keep in mind, though, even though it's in Meridian, a lot of patients are not from that area. Just like any other hospital, you may find some from other surrounding areas.
So those records are here?
Yes, ma'am. So when you go in to look at the records, it's going to tell you the person's name, sometime what reason they were there, and under what circumstance were they dismissed. But you know, did they pass away there, or were they healed and just discharged?
So what year records?
What year?
Are here in the archives? Those records?
They vary from they vary. I'm not sure what the official dates are, but afterwards I'll look it up for you. So when you're looking at ancestors, the key thing is do not shy away from records that may be embarrassing. We're genealogists. Nothing embarrasses us. The goal is to find the ancestor and put them on the family tree or the branch and keep it moving. So these are the rules I go by. Do not be afraid to ask the hard question. I've asked plenty of them. I've gotten some people to roll their eyes at me, or some told me to leave it alone. You're messing my business. But since I'm a genealogist, I just keep on digging. And one day, I was looking for a marriage record on my father's side, and I was showing some records to my mom. And she said, you need to stop that, because you're going to find out that me and John Ross are related to each other. And they were kind of, you know, and John Ross is my dad. He was from Clay County, and I was in Chickasaw County. But my family's from Calhoun County, and those counties just a circle. So I kind of found out some of their relatives were the same relatives. You're going to find that a lot. It doesn't matter. I found them anyway. Do not dismiss names because they are spelled differently. Now, my mother's maiden name is Glaspie, Glaspie. Some of the families spell it Glaspy. Some of them say their name is Glispie, Gillispie. It's the same name. It all depends on how you say it, right? If you say, oh, we were talking to someone yesterday and said his name is Green, but he told me that the Green without the E were not related to him. I said, okay. I said, I can't really, say anything, but it's your family, but most Greens I know have Greens and Green in the same family with the E and without the E. So if you can't, once you tell them that it doesn't matter, and they say it does matter, move on to the next topic. Now, even in the same family, my mother's a Glaspie. Her brother, and that lived in Indiana, he was a Gillispie. They had the same father. My in-laws, my first set of in-laws, were Dixons, and the mother was a Dixon. Her husband was a Dixson. The other brother was a Dickson. All those are Dixons, right? But so I think when the Assembly started coming out and they wanted me to file the taxes for them, and they said, you need to file ours separately. I said, why? You all are married to each other. She said, we always file it separately because he's a DIXON, he's a DICK, he's a DIXSON, and I'm a DIXON. So I wonder if I should have been a DIXSON because that was the father. But it's too late now. It's the same name. Because it all depends on how you hear the word and what part of the nation you're from. The accents are different. And whether or not this person knew how to spell. And I was just giving them an example of how my mother's name should have been Dolpha Lee Glaspie. D-O-F-F-A. Because her father's name was William Dolpha Glaspie. She was the first child, so they named her after him. Got to the Department of Health. They said, oh, they don't know how to spell Dorothy. They erased that. Put D-O-R-T-H-Y. So from then on, she became a Dorothy. Her father was a Dolphin, she was a Dorothy. So you will see records on, and I talked to some of you out here, and you have birth certificates without the name that your parents gave you. My husband's name was, on his birth certificate, said Royal Lee Lawson. Everything else said Roy Lee. So when the guy would drive Social Security, we had to go get it changed. So Royal Lee could become Roy Lee, and he could get his Social Security. This happens every day. So if you see it, just say, okay, we need to go get it changed. It's not a long process. They give you a form to fill out, and just follow the form, and it's pretty easy to do. If it's not easy to do, contact someone, contact the Department of Health and say, hey, I can't find these records, or come here and find a substitute record. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? So don't give up. And always double check those records that someone gave you, because sometimes those records are not correct. Even if you see it on Ancestry, someone put that there. If it's not an official record and someone put it in their family tree, double check that record, because you'll be going down a rabbit hole looking for people that don't even exist.
Sometimes even if it's official, they choose the wrong one.
Yes, yes. You have to really look at it and decide, because from one census year to the next, it may change. After the Civil War, a lot of people changed their name. My great-grandmother, who lived to be 116, I always said, she was talking about the family, she said, well, you know that's not their real name. As a little girl, I'm like, what? And you know how you find, oh, she don't know what she's talking about. So here I am looking for my fourth great-grandfather. All my family members on my dad's side, they love the name John. John is in the Bible. You see that name a lot. So my father's name was John Ross. His brother's name was John Ernest. His father's name was Eulin John. His father's name was John Calhoun. And his father's name was John Bias. They liked that name, John. So I kept thinking about this. She said, that's not their name. So it wasn't until just maybe 4 or 5 years ago that it clicked when I was trying to find my great-grandmother, because she was a Sanders. I found them in 1880. I could not find them in 1870. They had all these children. It's like, where are these people? Maybe the census taker overlooked them. So I did a search, and I just used the head of household's first name. His first name was Shadrach. Another name from the Bible, right? So I just put Shadrach, and I put it in the county. Lo and behold, here comes the Shadrach Phillips in Alabama. This Shadrach Phillips in Alabama, his in 1880 was the same family in Lowndes County in 1880. He had a Shadrach Jr. who was 1 year old. In 1880 in Mississippi, Shadrach had an 11-year-old son named Shadrach. Every one of the children was there. So I'm like, oh, that's what she meant. They were Phillips, and when they lived in Alabama, when they moved to Mississippi, they changed the name from Phillips to Sanders. I don't know why. I'm just glad I found it. And you'll see that a lot. After the war, a lot of people changed their last name. Some people felt that they wanted to disassociate themselves with the former slave owner. Some people thought it was a gimmick, and that if we keep that last name, people gonna be able to track us down. So they changed their last name. So in the census, sometimes you can't find a person. You find them in 1 year, you can't find them the next year. Leave the index out. Look at the people that live next door to them. Go back and find them in the previous census year and start reading the actual census itself. And a lot of times you'll see that they are actually there, but they have a different last name. So when you can't find people, there's always a reason. Was there a natural disaster that these people had to migrate from one area to another? Was it yellow fever? Was it a flood, like the flood of 27? Was there a hurricane when people are displaced? Why my family living in the north part of the state now? In the early years, I found them down on the coast. If they're agriculture workers, they're going to migrate where there's opportunity for them to do work. So just because they're in one place this time, if you find them on the census in 1880, you say, well, I got them here. One of the worst cases I've seen was someone called me and she said she found her relatives in 1920 and they were in Wayne County. She cannot find them in Wayne County anymore. I said, what did you mean? You just looked in Wayne County? She said, yes. She said, I found some, but they weren't in Wayne County. They had moved to the Delta to work. People don't just stay in one spot. Just like we don't stay in one spot, they don't stay in one spot. Travel with them. See if there's a natural disaster happened that caused a mass exodus to another location. People moving, a lot of people moving, there's a reason for it. Check the history. So you got history, genealogy is a history lesson. So you need to know what state they were from, what county they were from, when my county was formed. I can't find them. Did they change their last name? Did a natural disaster happen when they got up and moved? Ask yourself these questions. And most majority of the time, you will find out, oh, okay, so they're over here. This person got married, and mom and dad were old. My husband lived over here. His family was here. They had some land, so we came and got mama, and we took her to live here because she needs someone to take care of her. There's a reason why people keep moving. So once you find the reason, you'll find those hidden ancestors. So y'all, that's my presentation for today. As I said, soon at some point, this will be on our YouTube channel for Archive History. The one we did last month, it was on county records. It's already uploaded, and you can go to it and see it. And like I said, if you're having the questions, let me go to the next slide so I can give you my email address. Like I said, don't be shy about asking questions. Hold on just 1 second. Put my glasses back on, y'all. So that is my email address. Now the archive website, you just Google Department of Archives and History, mdah.ms.gov. Then you'll see the archives and it'll give you a link to the catalog. You don't need to sign in, nothing. Mississippi Department of Archives and History. That's what MDH stands for. Okay, they do it. Now, if you have a question, you have a genealogical question or historical question, once you go on our website, there is a link that you can ask a question. If you have a genealogical question, you can go on there, especially if you're in Mississippi. There's no charge in Mississippi. I don't know about Iowa State, but I know Mississippi, there's not a charge. You can ask a question. You cannot ask for your lineage because that's not a question. That's the whole project. So when a lot of times people call me and I hear someone say, oh, I can help you, write to the archives and tell them everything you know. Don't do that. Because you have an hour worth of research time. I'm going to spend 30 minutes trying to figure out what's the question. I have a whole narrative here. I'm reading this narrative. Looks like she knows everything. What's the question? So if you wasted your hour of research time, because I don't know what your question is. I don't know if I'm supposed to verify what you are saying or what. So your question should be, where was this person born? These are the parents. I need to know who the parents are. I need to know who this person married. Give us some information. I need to know that they're African American or they're Caucasian. I need to know if they're Native American. These things are pertinent. So if I find 2 records, if you don't tell me what race they are, I don't know which one to look for, right? So sometimes you say, oh, they're Native American, and if they show up as mulatto, it's because the census taker or that person looked at them and they said they look like they're mulatto. If you didn't say I'm Native American, they say, okay, she's mulatto. Because see, it's all in what you perceive. If you don't actually just say, I'm Native American, I'm African American, I won't know what record to look for you in. Because a lot of the records are separated by race. You only have that 1 hour. Maximize it. Then you can send question after question. Just be sure that you're asking questions and not narratives, okay? And they will respond back to you. They have a timeline when they respond back to you. You always should get a response back. If you don't get a response back, and I would say like in 3 weeks, you should call and say, I sent a request in and I have not got a response. Okay? This is what they do every day. They expect this from you. When you go into the search room, there are librarians in there to help you. If I'm a librarian and I see a bunch of people coming in and no one comes my way, I think they know what they're looking for, right? You may not know, but I'm here waiting for you to come ask me a question. And I don't know you need help until you come and say, I need help with this right here. Maximize your time. Do a little research online. Have your question, everything laid out. When you come to the archives, you got to go to that desk to sign in. While you're there, can you help me with this record? I'm looking for this marriage record. It was in 1860, but I can't find it. I don't know what happened to them. I need to find this marriage record. So this person, so the librarian, now I know that you said 1860, and if I say you're an African American, I'm like, well, you know what? The 1860 marriage records may not exist, but sometimes there may be some freedman marriage records. So I'm going to go to that county and see if there are any freedman marriage records. Because a lot of times after the Civil War, people came back and wanted their marriage registered. They may have gotten married, but it was never registered. So they came in and said, now that we are free people, I want my record registered. But you don't know till you ask that question, and I look online and say, we have some freedman marriage records, but let's look and see if we have yours, okay? Because the majority of the time you say 1860, I'm assuming you're looking for a Caucasian marriage record. Yes, ma'am.
The slave schedules, are they a part of the federal census or the state census?
The federal census.
Two different slave schedules.
Yeah, there's 1850 and 1860. And those are part of the federal census records.
Okay, so there's not a separate state slave schedule?
No, ma'am.
The state, when they did their census, did not count African Americans in their census?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No. Because at that point, they would see a property. So after 1865, African Americans are considered as property, so they would not be on, just like they're not on the federal census, because the census says a free poll. So if they're not a free poll or free person, then they're not listed there.
Now, there did exist before the Civil War, free people of color in Mississippi?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a separate state census for the free people of color?
No, it's going to be on a regular census. It's only going to say free person of color, just like on the federal census.
There's a column for that?
Yes, ma'am. Right. You'll see it says, it'll be written out, free person of color. Yes, ma'am.
The EDUCABLE school, are they all here, or would some be in the county? Are they all located here?
As far as I know, there are some on microfilm that are here. Then the rest of them are here, but you can't use the actual paper copies now because they've been scanned. And you can look at those from home, or you can come here and look on it. Look at it. Just go to our website, and it's under digital archives, and it's going to give you a list of records we have, and those state census records and those eligible children records are listed there.
And you have them all, all over the state?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I ran into a problem where it seemed apparently that one of my relatives had been sold. So it had one name and then was sold to someone, and then its last name changed.
Yes, ma'am.
So how could I find the first family?
You would need to find in the deed records, and sometime in the will and probate records. You will see a person being enslaved person being sold. So if you know who the sellers are, you can go to the records and into the deed records, because an enslaved person is property. You'll see sale of slave. So as long as you know who the sellers are. You also can go to the will and probate records, and some of the best records are going to be the inventory records, where they took an inventory of the property. Because the enslaved person is the property, right? So they go to inventory of the property, and in that index, you're going to see, once they start the inventory, they're going to give you the names and the value. Just like everything else, in the inventory, they need to know what the value is, right? So they may say John, male, and $500. It all depends on his age. Okay? So they get ready to divide up the property, or if they have to sell the estate, they know how much money to ask for. So go to the will records. If you know the actual name, you can go to the will records and the deed records. Matter of fact, if you go look on YouTube, Department of Archives History YouTube channel, you will see the last workshop we went into talking about these records. Okay? And if you have more questions, please come here or send them an email and say, I'm looking for this person. And if you don't get a positive answer the first time, ask again, add more information to it, rephrase it, because sometimes it's the way we phrase a question, and we may not understand what you're actually looking for. It doesn't cost you anything, just a little time. Or come here, and we will help you search for it. Okay? All right. Yes, sir.
Are there records of slaves by name and county for Mississippi? Records giving that name, what county they lived in Mississippi? There's not a database that works like that. You'd have to know. What you asked for is a county record. There's no state record like that. You would have to look in the county and what county they were from, and go by the last name of the enslaved person, the owner, right? And sometimes there are certain books, like from Adams County and other counties, where they've gone through and indexed will and probate records, and there are names in the back, and then you see it says slaves. And if you look at it, then you find the slaves, and you find the name you're looking for, and you go to those pages and see if those records match what you're looking for. So you may have one for John, you may have like 20 Johns, but go to all those pages and see if any of those match the person you're looking for. But you need to try to narrow it down to an age. And that would help you a lot more. Any other questions? So what are we going to do today? What's our next step? Our next step is to formulate your plan. I want to look at this record. I want to look at the marriage records, the death records. The death records are actually on Ancestry. The index is on Ancestry. Once you go to the index, you can come here and then get a copy of it, of the death record, for 25 cents. Or you could write the Vital Records and pay them $17 for a copy. I'm just saying. Economics, right? We're doing genealogy. We don't need a certified copy, right? We just need a Xerox copy of it. So from 1912 to 1943, November 1912 to 1943, you can come here and look at it yourself and get a copy. Or write to the archives and say, hey, I want a copy of these death records. Here are the numbers. Okay? You can join a genealogical society and ask if anyone in the area, if you're going over to the archives, can you make me a copy of these records? Okay? There's also, on our website, there's a list of researchers for hire. And you can contact one of those people, and they'll do a research for you as well. Okay? All right.
For a price.
Yeah, yes, for a price. Yes, ma'am. If you come here, you can do it for free. You know, or you can hire someone. You can hire someone else to do it. They don't have to be that. You don't have to use that list. You may know people who do genealogy all the time, and just say, when you go to the archives, copy this for me. And most of the times they will. You know, you can contact me, and if it's only 2 or 3 pages, I'll copy it for you. Okay. Yeah. So just don't give up. Yes.
One thing about obituaries, there are published volume newspapers for obituaries at archives.
Right. The majority of those, and you will see a lot of obituaries here in book form. However, the majority of those are not African American. Yeah, right. And a lot of times someone asks me, why don't you have the books with African Americans in it? And my response has always been the same. Have you compiled one? Send us a copy. Because archives does not have the resources to go out and do this for you. So if you do one, send one to the archives, send one to the Library of Congress, and send one to your local library. So if something happens, there's always those 3 gonna be somewhere. Okay? It is incumbent on you to accumulate your records and submit them in a format that the next generation can use them. Don't keep them in a box so that your children and great-grandchildren say, Grandma left all these boxes of papers. Here, somebody give me a trash bag quick. We have family files here. There are genealogical files here that you can submit your research here so the next person coming along can look at it. Just remember, if you're looking at one of those files, what you're supposed to do, verify. Verify everything. Just because someone put in ink does not mean it's true. I had one of my history teachers' name was Denora Davis. And he would always say, verify, verify, verify. Let me look at your footnotes. None of these are primary sources. Verify it. Genealogy the same way. You need to verify it until you get to a primary source. And you say, okay, this is true. Okay? All right. So, we talked about county records. We talked about state records. I told you what records are on file here. Because everything I talk about here is in this building. Or is on our website. You can come in or you can request research be done on our website. I think the only thing you have to pay is the cost of copies. Okay? So there's no reason for you to be not doing your genealogy. You know, just send us a question. And like I said, if you run into a brick wall, you can always email me. I don't know the answer to everything, but I know people who are more into it than I am. Okay? So if you ask me about something, I'm like, I don't know this, but I do know that Miss Robinson over here, she works with those records. So I'm going to ask her, can I give your email address to this person right here? I'm always going to get permission first and say, they need some help with their genealogy. And it's either yay or nay. In our genealogy world, nay means nothing. It just means we're going to ask the next person. We don't take no for an answer. That just means, okay, I'm going to ask you, can you ask me, can you help me with this question? You tell me no. That's okay. Can you help me with this question right here? She just said no, but I'm sure you know too, right? That's right. We'll go to the next person. So there's some other genealogy websites, workshops online. Just go to our webpage. There's some beginning genealogy. There's county records. There's African American genealogy. All of them may start out with the same resources, but once you get into them, they're going to have different resources. No two genealogists are going to do it the same way, because our brains don't work the same. I always start mine out with genealogist personal. I want to get it out of the way. So when you run into these people, and then when you run into these roadblocks, and these people don't want to help you, I want you to remember that Joyce said, it's personal. So if she don't tell me, you're going to tell me. Somebody's going to tell me, because I'm going to keep asking questions, you're going to finally tell me so I stop bothering you. You know, we historians and genealogists, we are known just to keep digging out. We're going to get to the root of it sooner or later. You know, it's fun though. And you're going to find things that are shocking to you. You're going to find things that make you cry. You're going to find things that make you laugh. I know I have. But it's better than TV, because I know that's fiction. Genealogy is not something based on facts. It is the fact. So you can't get any better than that. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for coming today. I think our hour has expired. I can never just wind it all up in 1 hour, because I'm kind of talkative. And I like you to ask questions. And if you don't have any questions, and if you leave today and say, I should have asked this question, you have my email address. And I will get back with you. It may be a day or two, but I'll get back with you, okay? All right. Thank you all.
I'm cold. I said, you got on deep freeze in there.
This room is